Hello and welcome to another episode of The Great British Story, a People's History on BBC. I'm your host, Stuart Tyson, and today we're going to talk about a revolution that changed the whole world and how we live today. It's the Industrial Revolution. Today, I'll talk about the sheep factories, but first, I should welcome my guest and he shall introduce himself. Khalifa Al-Mary. Thank you. Hi, I'm Khalifa Mary and I'm 29 years old. I'm an environmentalist. Joining our conversation on the environmental impacts. But before we go any further, let me tell you what SHEEP stands for. Social impacts, historical impacts, environmental impacts, economical impacts, and finally the political impacts of the Industrial Revolution. Let's begin.
The Industrial Revolution created a huge impact in our daily life and how we do things. It has created classes such as the working class, the middle class, the high class, etc. The social impacts that emerged in the Industrial Revolution were the new family and class structures rose to adjust the new age economy. And production shifted a large scale of production in factories. Industrialization also caused populations of migration to move from rural areas to urban areas to find work and get wages. This is because people were looking for work in factories because it was easier than the farm and less time consuming. The working class always got low wages and they couldn't say anything about it because they do anything to work. In the factories, workers were meant to arrive in a whistle, and if they were late, they'd get locked in or fined. Within the factories, the workers couldn't wander, chat, or sing, or they would get punished. New mechanisms of labor supervision were introduced due to the workers lacking discipline. A new category of workers rose, which were the foremen. They had the power to supervise work and hire or fire workers from the factories. The first generation of workers started protesting by stealing, taking unauthorized day off, and became Luddites. The second and third generations accepted what they had and they didn't protest because they were desperate for work. Married women's role was to care about the house and cared about their children. Women used to work full-time industrial work until she got married and gets her child. She would stop working for factories and start caring about her child and home. There were jobs for women that kept them close to their house and children, such as needlework, or earned wages as caterers, charwomen, keepers of cafes and inns, and laundresses, which would keep them away from their house, but those jobs took less working hours so that they can go back to their children and house. Unfortunately, child labor rose to the first factories, mines, and mills in England. The factory owners saw that children were working better and cheaper. They would work harder, they can't say anything to the owners because they are younger than them, and would work for less amounts of money. This was slave labor. Those were the social impacts that were affected by the Industrial Revolution. In the Industrial Revolution, there were many historical impacts that occurred in the revolution. The working class formed 80% of the society. People who used to work in farms started gathering in towns and cities to get work in the new factories, which led to very high unemployment rate of workers in the first phase of the revolution. The textile industries were so new at the end of the 18th century. There were initially no laws to regulate the unskilled workers desperate to find work in the textile industries. The new migrants to the factories didn't have any bargaining power to request higher wages, fair working hours, or better working conditions. The wealthy class only had the opportunity to vote. The working class didn't and couldn't use the democratic system. In 1799 and 1800, the British Parliament created a new law. It was illegal for the worker to unionize or combine as a group to ask for much better working conditions in the factories. Most of the unemployed workers were the skilled ones, such as hand weavers. They couldn't compete with the efficiency of the new machines. The skilled workers used to earn 20 to 30 shillings per week, and now they're compelled on living with 5, 4, or less per week. Another major occurrence was the invention of electricity. We still use the electricity nowadays and in the Industrial Revolution. Those were the historical impacts that occurred in the Industrial Revolution.
For now, I'll shut my mouth and let the expert talk about the environmental impacts. When the Industrial Revolution began, pollution of all kinds started, such as air pollution and acid rain. The cause of those two dangerous kinds of pollution was formed from burning coal and producing sulfur dioxide emissions. Combined with other atmospheric components, create sulfuric and nitric acid. This darkened stones and made it brittle, and it darkened vegetation. Further evolutionary changes in moths, butterflies, and insects. The pollution in London grew extremely fast in the 1700s. The population grew 500,000, 1800 a million, and in the 19th century it grew to 2 million people. Population growth resulted in unemployment and more people moving into cities. The smoke created a fog or smog. In 1888, there was a 4-day fog, which led to 110 deaths. In 1952, the death rate went up to 5,000 deaths. And in 1987, the big smoke fog rose in the skies of Great Britain. Industries were not required to stop working, but minimize it through self-regulation. Water pollution. Water pollution was created from millions of liters of sewage deposited in water tanks. It virtually killed all the fish and sea mammals. In 1851, the sewage was shipped out and dumped into the sea. Due to no cars at that time, transport mainly relied on horses. But the problem was how to get of the horses made, manure. In 1830, it was estimated that there was 3 tons of horse manure, and in 1900 there was 10 tons of horse manure. Finally, deforestation was another environmental problem. Great Britain had serious timber shortage, proportionally less woodland than any other country in Europe in the 19th century. Thank you, that was really factual. Now, let's go to the economic impact of the Industrial Revolution.
The people of the 18th century, England, Europe, moved from agriculture to manufacturing. Production shifted from traditional locations in their house and a small workshop to huge and steam-powered factories. The overall goods and services that produced have dramatically risen, and the capital invested per worker grew higher than before. The population grew higher, and the economy of Great Britain rose as much as the population because of new resources. More investors, business people, and managers created groups and took financial risks and got heaps of rewards from trading and investing all around the world. Since they have the money, no one would refuse to sell their land to get money. The businessmen got an advantage of having money and buying land and other resources from either poor countries or poor people. Britain and other industrialized countries went to Asia and Africa looking for new colonies that could supply them with necessary raw materials to get their products ready and perfectly formed. In Great Britain, there were too many prisoners, and mostly the prisoners that were transported committed petty crimes. Others were political prisoners. Dangerous prisoners were not transportable offenses. They needed space, so they thought what to do with them. And then the government eventually took them to a land found 18 years earlier, which is Australia. The first convoy of convicts arrived in 1788 with 751 convicts with their families and 252 Marines also with their families. In 1834, the Poor Law passed, and the act stated that no one was to receive money or other help from the Poor Law authorities, excepting a workhouse. The conditions in the workhouse was made to be very harsh to discourage people from wanting to receive help. Those are the political impacts of the Industrial Revolution and the last sheep factor.
In conclusion, the Industrial Revolution created a huge impact on us and how we live. But there were negatives, such as pollution. In this episode, you were informed about the sheep factors of the Industrial Revolution. Thank you for watching today's episode on the Industrial Revolution. See you next time on The Great British Story, A People's History, every Thursday, 8 p.m. GMT on BBC.